Hey guys, here we are, Red, White, and Ruthless. We're at number 21 now. Today's going to be a short one. I want to talk about a little change to the podcast, I guess. Um, my focus, as y'all know, if you've been listening or watching the podcast, I cover a lot of political stuff. It interests me. I just did one on the Russian hoax, but I've started to do more. I used to tell stories about my career and stuff, and I'm not going to stop that. But um, now I'd like to get in a little deeper into some of the things that are going on in CDCR. Uh, we had the infamous California model that apparently is not going to be funded, which I think is a great thing. Um, we all know that, well, we all may not know, but CDCR was locked down for a period of time because they had too much violence, too many things going on, um, and so they shut them down at the level threes and fours, I believe. And what normally happens is they search and they develop intel, and once they're done, they kind of rehash it, what they found, what kind of information they found, and if there's no reason to keep the lockdown going, then they bring it back to a normal program, and they did that. So now they're back at normal program, but since then they've had, I don't know, several murders, um, and a murder of a parole agent. So yeah, you got that. So I'd like to get into some CDCR stuff, and some of it is really inspired by the lie that CDCR tells, in that they are transparent. That is an absolute lie. Okay. I reached out to CDCR communications, and some very, very simple questions. Very simple. And I know they're not going to give up information that's under investigation, involved in litigation potentially. I get that. Okay, I do. Okay, but they work harder to um, avoid giving up information than they do just giving it up. It's information that wouldn't hurt. Um, in fact, I'm doing a story about uh, the they implemented these chairs that inmates are secured to, um, and they it appears they're in ADSEG units. ADSEG probably shoe too, I guess. Um, but they secure the inmate to the chair, and there was two inmates who escaped from the chairs, went up and got weapons from a cell, and I mean there was no staff in the room day, and it was like a day room of an ADSEG, and went and murdered the guy. I mean, for over 2 minutes, just probably stabbed him over 100 times. The knife, and it was probably around 10 inches long, was actually sticking in his eye, and they kicked it into his brain, at least a couple of times. He was already dead then, I'm sure, but it's pretty horrific stuff. And I know they're getting sued for that, and I'd mentioned that. I asked if there was litigation going, um, and the individual responded, as partially as I would expect. I'm not asking any information about that incident. I just want to know, are the chairs still in use? Okay, has nothing to do with the litigation. Either they're still being used or they're not. Okay, has no bearing on the litigation at all whatsoever. Okay, but they, like I say, they work harder to keep. I could get that information. As a matter of fact, I already have the information. Okay, but I want to develop a working relationship with CDCR. I'll even give them the benefit of the doubt on some things because essentially I haven't got a straight answer since I've been communicating with CDCR. And it's just really pathetic that you call yourself a transparent government agency when you work so hard to keep everything non-transparent. They're literally hiding the use of these murder chairs, um, and refuse to give any information uh, out about their continued use. And just the fact that, yeah, we're still using them. And you could say there have been some modifications to policy or what have you, but the chairs are in use with modifications or whatever. Okay, I get it. All right, I get it. You don't have to reference anything. It's just the hiding shit that pisses me off. But yeah, and I think it's I feel like the communications folks are feel like they're above having to answer to media. Well, I mean, if let's say this, if I don't know, some big news organization, Fox, were to be in contact, oh yeah, they would bend over backwards. Well, probably not Fox because they're so fucking liberal, but let's say CNN. Okay, they would bend over backwards, all right, to try and get them at least something. But with a podcast or what have you, they're just going to work hard to basically say fuck you. So okay, you got my attention. So now I would like to build an audience around uh, some CDCR stuff. Okay, I mean, let's be honest. It's my expertise. It's definitely not communications expertise, and that's where they kind of fuck up a little bit. Is when they give me information, they assume I don't know how to dispute it. They assume I don't know what they're saying, and I can't know that they're full of shit. And I think that probably rubs them the wrong way too, because they tried that. So whatever. But so I'm reaching out to any and everybody. I don't care if you're an ex-inmate, inmate. I'm going to put my email in. You'll be able to access it, and my email is a Proton email. If y'all aren't familiar with Proton, they're out of, gosh, I want to say Switzerland or a completely different country. So it's impossible for CDCR to ever access it. Okay. I mean, they would literally have to come to my house, and I don't even live in California anymore, and get my shit and try to, that's how they would have to do it. So, send your information to my email. I'd love to hear it. And, we'll talk about it and see if it's something that I want to do a podcast on. But I'll say this too, is I don't want to muddy up CDCR unless they have it coming, and I've shared that with them. We'll talk about, I know, the secretary of CDCR is, he's under a lot of pressure. And, I've heard good things about him. A good friend of mine has spoke very highly of him. And so I don't come in with a preconceived notion that McCumber is a bad dude. Okay. He may be. Okay. And I'll be honest, when I figure that out, I'll say it. But all I'm saying is I'm going to be fair. Okay. There are people in CDCR headquarters that I know are dirty, that absolutely know it, that they're, well, Yeah, they're no good. All right, they're no good. And when I say no good, is they're dishonest. Um, their loyalty to them is you'll lie for me instead of you'll make sure that you keep me on the straight and narrow. Okay, loyalty is to them you'll lie for me, which is almost a requirement um, in to elevate your position and see. Some people are able to elevate their their position in CDCR, to promote in CDCR, and they never, fortunately, never get really put into a situation where they got to choose: do I lie, or do I destroy my career and be honest? um and I will say that I had at least one warden fired directly because of information that I reported, um, that started the investigation. I mean, OIA told me, we've been waiting for you, or not you, but we've been waiting for this information on this person. Okay. And he was well liked in the department, and I know I got shit on after that, 100%. Um, so yeah. But despite that, I mean, because I saw, for me personally, I saw the way the department was going. Um, and I had a hard time really wanting to promote after that, because I knew that it just I was going to be asked to do something that I was not comfortable with. So I was okay not promoting it. It wasn't that big a deal. Um, so I was first rank on the chief deputy warden list for 5 years. I only interviewed a few times, and one of the interviews I completely shit the bed on. The other ones I was always told I was number two, but yeah, I know I was number two for sure. But you did real great. And then I find out that it was the person that was hired, because they're all connected, was either most often it was a close associate of the uh, associate director, or somebody, you know. So that's how that normally works, which that's okay. That's okay. I'm retired and I enjoy my retirement. Some folks get stuck, and it's great if you want to go back as a retired annuitant. I mean, that's fantastic. For me, it just meant more of dealing with dirtbags. So, and I just didn't want that. I probably wouldn't get hired anyways, but I mean, I didn't really even try uh, to do anything. But yeah, I mean, to I guess make a long story short, I'm looking for information, um, stories about CDCR. There's plenty, on YouTube and on. I mean, just do a Google search of CDCR. But I want to tell your story. Okay, I want to tell your story. I'm gonna I'm gonna verify. I'm gonna do my best to verify. Are you are you being truthful? Are you are you squared away? Um, but that's what I would like to do. I want to tell your story about CDCR. If you're willing to come on the podcast, that's fantastic. We can do it a couple different ways. You can be out there, with me on, basically on the screen, uh, um, or we can do it a different way. We can make sure that nobody knows who you are. I don't really care. I want to hear what you have to say, and I want to hear your story. Because I know I have plenty of stories about bad things that have happened in CDCR, and I know y'all have many more. So let's do this, man. Um, one thing I learned is, but it took me far too fucking long to learn this, but the most loyal and honest people with the most ethics and morals are not the leadership of CDCR. They're not the leadership. Okay. They are the ones who walk the toughest beat in the state. Okay, they're the prison guards. Okay, they're the sergeants and they're the lieutenants. And there are definitely some good, solid ass captains out there and some solid ass AWs. When I talk leadership, I mean headquarters, 15-15. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Um, I worked in headquarters for about I want to say 6 months, and it was horrible. They are dog eat dog. I mean, they are just after each other's job. They're like a bunch of it's horrible up there. Nobody has any. The only the when you say I got your back, it's a knife. All right, that's the way it is, and that's how they function up there. Is everybody wants to get ahead, wants to, and they'll stab each other in the back to do it. They have no problem with it. It's not the CDCR I wanted to deal with. So yeah, let's do this, man. I'll make sure y'all have my Proton email and send me whatever you have. We'll exchange some emails and talk about it, and how to move forward. And maybe I'll want to do a podcast about it, and we'll talk about how that looks. But anyways, man, y'all be safe out there. I know it's going to be, well, I don't know who it's going to be that responds, man. And I don't care. I want to hear about it. So y'all take care, and peace out. I'm going to play my little song on the way out. But I'm looking forward to talking to y'all. Call me.